Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Earthquake kills over 60 people in Nepal. Rescue and relief operations underway. Tremors also felt in India and China. Israel refuses temporary ceasefire in Gaza unless the hostages are freed. US and Arab leaders to meet in Jordan to discuss Gaza conflict. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks with his UK counterpart Rishi Sunak, exchanges views on the situation in West Asia. In Cricket World Cup, New Zealand to face Pakistan in Bengaluru, while Ashes rivals Australia and England will lock horns in Ahmedabad. Over 60 people were killed and dozens were injured in Nepal when a strong earthquake struck the western area of Jajarkot late on Friday night. The US Geological Survey said that the earthquake had a preliminary magnitude of 5.6 and occurred at a depth of 11 miles. Nepalese Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal in a social media post expressed deep sorrow at the loss of lives and property in the quake and ordered security agencies to launch immediate rescue and relief operations. Israel will not agree to any temporary ceasefire with Hamas until over 240 hostages seized by Hamas during its attack on October 7th are released. Speaking during a televised address, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said this was the message that he conveyed to US Secretary of State Antony Blinken when he met him. The strong reaction came as explosions and flares lit up the night sky over the Gaza Strip on Friday as Israel continued its assault against Hamas. Meanwhile, a convoy of ambulances was also struck on Friday. It was to leave Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City and head to the south of the enclave to evacuate injured people. A spokesperson for the Israeli military said that it was looking into the report.
We are proceeding with all our might, and Israel refuses any temporary ceasefire that does not include the return of our kidnapped hostages. Israel will not permit the transfer of fuel to the Gaza Strip and opposes the transfer of funding to Gaza. Citizens of Israel, from the outbreak of war on that Black Sabbath, we have lost many civilians, fighters, soldiers, members of the security services, police, and emergency workers. We have lost incredible combat soldiers, beloved Israelis.
Antony Blinken, who made his second visit to Israel in a month in an effort to secure a pause in the fighting, urged Israeli leaders to allow for humanitarian pauses in their war with Hamas in Gaza. He said this will allow time to boost aid to the Palestinian enclave and facilitate the release of hostages.
Even as we work toward progress on each of these urgent needs, we're focused on setting the conditions for a durable and sustainable peace and security. The United States continues to believe that the best viable path, indeed the only path, is through a two-state solution. That's the only guarantor of a secure Jewish and democratic Israel, the only guarantor of Palestinians realizing their legitimate right to live in a state of their own, enjoying equal measures of security, freedom, opportunity, and dignity. The only way to end a cycle of violence once and for all. And it's precisely now, in the darkest moments, that we have to fight hardest to preserve a path of stability, of security, of opportunity, of integration, of prosperity, and of peace. Not tomorrow, not after the war, but today.
Meanwhile, after his visit to Israel, Blinken has arrived in Jordan, where he will meet with Saudi, Qatari, Emirati and Egyptian foreign ministers, as well as Palestinian representatives in Amman. Earlier this week, Jordan asked Washington to deploy Patriot air defense systems to bolster its border defense at a time of heightened regional tensions and conflict. U.S. Patriot missiles were stationed in the kingdom in 2013, following an uprising in northern neighbor Syria, where the kingdom feared a civil war could spill over and ignite a regional conflict. France will host an international humanitarian conference for the civilian population in Gaza next week as it looks to coordinate aid for the affected region. While Paris has offered its support for Israel over a deadly October 7th attack by Hamas terrorists, there has been growing concern over civilian casualties that have soared under Israel's retaliatory bombardment and that has killed thousands, wounded and displaced many in Gaza. The conference will aim to mobilize financial resources with several sectors identified for emergency support, based on UN assessments of the immediate needs and also the opening of strictly humanitarian crossing points into Gaza. Amid the escalating tension between Lebanon-based Hezbollah and Israeli forces, the residents at the Lebanese border with Israel are leaving their homeland. The tension arose when an Israeli military post was attacked by anti-tank fires. Hezbollah claimed responsibility for the firing precision missiles on Israel. As per the International Organization for Migration, more than 30,000 Lebanese have been displaced since the beginning of the border tension. The United Nations has renewed calls for a ceasefire in the Middle East. The world body's humanitarian head, Martin Griffiths, has told UN members that time is running out for thousands of Palestinians. He has called for immediate intervention from the international community. Jory Jacobs reports from the United Nations.
With the conflict in the Middle East now in its third week, United Nations staff, especially those on the ground, are worried. More than 70 of its staff have been killed, and it says providing humanitarian aid is extremely challenging due to the lack of fuel, the ongoing bombardments, and the destruction of its infrastructure. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs convened a meeting in New York on Friday, briefing member states on the situation in Gaza. Martin Griffiths, the UN's humanitarian chief, says close to 9,000 Palestinians have been killed and says it's unclear the exact numbers as more could be unaccounted for under the rubble. But it's not only humanitarian aid that's a concern for the world body. It says the health system in Gaza is close to collapsing. The United Nations resident coordinator for the occupied Palestinian territories, Lynn Hastings, says the health system is overwhelmed with an influx of injuries combined with severe shortages of supplies, personnel, electricity and water. Since the start of the hostilities, she says 40% of hospitals in Gaza, that's 14 out of 35, have shut. Meanwhile, the UN says UNRWA is also running out of money. It says the situation has grown so increasingly desperate, and the UN and its partners will release an updated flash appeal for more funds to last until the end of the year. Now, the UN has been unable in recent weeks to take any decisive, legally binding decisions on the conflict, as the Security Council remains paralyzed by veto votes and the inability to agree on appropriate language on a Security Council resolution. The UN General Assembly has, however, passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire, but this is not legally binding. Jody Jacobs in New York, reporting for DD India.
Family, friends and fellow comrades in arms bid farewell to an Israeli Druze soldier on Friday. The soldier was killed during fighting in the Gaza Strip at a military funeral. Lieutenant Colonel Salman Habaka, a member of Israel's Druze Arab minority, was killed while commanding his tank unit as part of Israel's offensive against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Israeli activists in Tel Aviv staged a protest on Jewish Sabbath on Friday. They pressed the U.S. to use every diplomatic tool to bring about the release of hostages held by Hamas fighters. The activists also staged a traditional Shabbat dinner with empty chairs symbolizing their missing loved ones. Demonstrators set up dozens of empty strollers outside the United Nations International Court of Justice in The Hague on Friday. This was done to draw attention to the plight of Israeli hostages, especially children abducted by Hamas, and to call for their release. The protesters could be seen singing in Hebrew as some in tears embraced. Argentine human rights groups and Muslim organizations marched in Buenos Aires to demand a ceasefire in Gaza on Friday. Carrying Palestinian flags and signs with messages, demonstrators marched till the National Congress. Meanwhile, Argentine Nobel Prize winner Adolfo Pérez Esquivel called on people to keep on demonstrating until bombardment stops in Gaza. A group of pro-Palestinian protesters gathered at the port of Auckland to attempt to obstruct the departure of a cargo ship on Friday. They said the ship is loaded with weapons heading to Israel. Several protesters climbed a ladder on the side of the vessel attached to the cargo hatch. The demonstrators said they were prepared to stay as long as needed. Let's get you more on Russia-Ukraine crisis now. 9 people have been killed after a Ukrainian missile attack on Friday on an employment center in a Russian-occupied town in the southern region of Kherson. Russian news agencies quoted Governor Vladimir Saldo confirming the deaths as well as details about 9 who were badly injured. There was no report of the incident from Ukrainian officials or media. The United States is set to provide $425 million worth of additional arms and equipment to Ukraine for its ongoing fight against Russia's invasion. The package uses the last of the funds in the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, a more than $18 billion fund that allowed the Biden administration to buy weapons from the industry rather than pull from U.S. weapon stocks. The USAI funds will be put forward towards $300 million worth of laser-guided munitions to shoot down Russian drones. Millions of Americans will head to the polls on Tuesday with key races in 3 states, Kentucky, Mississippi and Virginia. There is also a vote to enshrine abortion rights into Ohio's state constitution. The results of these races will be the first indicators of what voters are focusing on ahead of the 2024 presidential election, which is just now a year away. Tony Waterman has more on this.
As the clock ticks down to Tuesday's elections, candidates are out in full force. A last-ditch effort to wrangle new voters and rally supporters.
It's because of each and every one of you here that we are going to win on Tuesday, November 7th.
Andy Beshear is fighting to keep his job as Kentucky governor. A Democrat in a deeply red conservative state, he's employed an interesting tactic, boasting about the benefits of Bidenomics without actually mentioning the president directly.
An unpopular president drags the party down. This is what we saw with Trump in 2020. A president who's personally popular will be able to gather seats.
Right now, Joe Biden's approval rating is hovering around 40%, hardly enough to coalesce voters in red states. It's a bit hazier in purple states like Virginia, where every seat in the state legislature is up for grabs. A Republican win would empower Governor Glenn Youngkin to enact conservative policies on abortion, taxes, and education, making it one of the most closely watched races in the country.
Because Virginia is a battleground state, both parties look at Virginia as looking to see which issues are working. And if there are issues that are working in Virginia, those are going to be the issues we see in the fall 2024 election.
One big unknown is whether anti-abortion policies will galvanize voters like it did in the midterms. Ohio may provide answers.
The leading opponents of Issue 1 want an extreme ban on abortion, with no exceptions for rape, not even for children.
Voters in the swing state will decide Tuesday whether to enshrine abortion rights into the state's constitution.
If they look and say, wow, it still has traction, it's definitely going to be a big issue. For the Republicans, they're going to look at the economy.
The outcome of Tuesday's elections will provide valuable insight into what issues are and aren't top of mind for voters headed into 2024. Those elections now just a year away,
giving candidates from both parties ample time to adjust their strategies. In Austin, Texas, Tony Waterman reporting for DD India.
American team to back me up, and I promise.
And now we take a look at other stories which are making into the headlines from across the world. Sample of asteroid Bennu brought to Earth by NASA will soon be on public display. The first display was made at the National Museum of Natural History in Washington on Friday. The near-Earth asteroid Bennu was found to have carbon-rich soil, including water-bearing clay minerals. Also, as per NASA, all these ingredients are crucial for development of life. French Impressionist Claude Monet painting will go on sale at Paris auction for the first time in decades. The painting, displaying rare and trademark of Monet's style, was painted in 1886 and is expected to fetch up to 3 million euros in the auction. In the 15th Hong Kong International Wine and Spirits Fair started on Friday. The three-day event will have more than 500 exhibitors from 17 countries showcasing their beverages. Many wineries from across the world spanning different generations are present with the hope to expand their business. Two snow leopards have appeared at the Bronx Zoo in New York. These leopards, listed as vulnerable by the International Union of Conservation of Nature, live in the highest areas of Central Asia. The cubs, one male, one female, have not been named yet. A short break ahead, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. 6 people killed as unprecedented downpours swamp Italy's Tuscany. The air quality reaches hazardous in India's capital region, Delhi.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action. Stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live and I'm Preeti Kaur. The death toll has risen to 80 in Nepal earthquake. The 6.4 Richter scale magnitude hit western Nepal with Jajarkot district as the epicenter last night. Police has confirmed 44 deaths in Jajarkot district, while 36 people died in Rokum district. 140 people are injured as per the latest updates. Prime Minister Pushp Kamal Dahal will be visiting Karmali province to meet quake victims' families. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a telephonic conversation with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on Friday. Prime Minister Modi congratulated Prime Minister Sunak on the successful completion of 1 year of his tenure in office. The leaders reiterated their commitment to continue to strengthen bilateral comprehensive strategic partnership. They welcomed the progress being made for an early conclusion of a mutually beneficial free trade agreement. The two leaders also exchanged views on developments in the West Asia region and the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Both the leaders also expressed deep concern at terrorism, worsening security situation, and also the loss of civilian lives. They agreed on the need for regional peace, security, stability, and continued humanitarian assistance. Both leaders agreed to remain in touch and exchanged greetings for the festive occasion of Deepavali. Bhutanese King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuk is visiting Indian state of Guwahati for a week. It is the first visit for any monarch of the neighbouring country to the northeastern state of Assam. The Bhutanese king's next stop would be New Delhi on Sunday, where he will meet President Draupadi Murmu and also hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. India and Bhutan look forward to strengthening their bilateral relations. Also, the Bhutanese king will travel to the western Indian state of Maharashtra during his stay in the country. At least 6 people have died and 2 were missing after rivers overflowed due to heavy rains in central Italy as Storm Ciarán lashed Western Europe. The Italian government declared a state of emergency and allocated an initial €5 million to help the worst hit areas. Italy's civil protection authorities have also issued a warning of heavy rains and strong winds in central and southern Italy, with a high red alert for the northern region of the country. Locals in Campi Bisenzio started cleanup operations on Friday after the Bisenzio River burst its banks and flooded the homes of the region as Storm Ciarán lashed through the area. Vulnerable sea turtles in Mexico's Acapulco are facing new threat this season after a sanctuary for their protection was devastated by Hurricane Otis. Hurricane Otis is being said to have destroyed the nesting area of the olive ridley turtle, black turtle and the leatherback turtle. Many residents in Acapulco have been left without work and are struggling to find the means to meet their basic needs. Also, firefighters from Spain battle a wildfire in eastern Valencia region after a deadly wildfire broke out and spread quickly overnight amid strong winds. Authorities have evacuated at least 800 people around the coastal town as the region and a large swathe of the eastern portion of the Iberian Peninsula was on high alert for strong winds for the second day in a row. Authorities estimate around 1,000 and 1,400 hectares could be affected by flames. Regional President Carlos Mazon said that the cause of the fire was unknown and would be investigated. Meanwhile, in India's financial capital, Mumbai, a layer of haze engulfs the region as air quality deteriorates. People say that pollution in the morning and evening is so much that many were facing breathing issues and asked government and authorities to take action and to bring relief to combat severe weather. Mumbai has issued a government notification asking construction sites to use barricades and banned burning of garbage as a move to combat the rising air pollution. The air quality index of India's capital, Delhi, has also deteriorated to the severe category. New Delhi topped a time list on Friday of the world's most populated cities compiled by Swiss group IQ Air. Smog covers Delhi as cold, heavy air traps construction dust, vehicle emissions and also smoke, and have caused a surge of illnesses among the city of 20 million people. Amid rising pollution levels, the Commission of Air Quality Management has implemented restrictions in the capital to combat severe pollution. Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Guatemala, Carla Samayoa Ricari, delivered the 46th Sapro House lecture on empowerment of women in Guatemala, an approach to equality and development at the Indian Council of World Affairs. Minister Ricari highlighted that while Guatemala and India are located away in terms of distance and geographic locations, but both countries have put two diplomatic relations that had transcended borders. Guatemala is also a country like India and shares the heritage of ancient civilization. A quick look at stories making it to the headlines from India now. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met Italy's President Sergio Mattarella on Friday. The two leaders discussed ways to further develop the strategic partnership between the two countries. Earlier, he also had a discussion with the leading think tanks of Italy. Indian Minister for Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Piyush Goyal, attended and addressed the G20 Standards Dialogue in New Delhi. During the event, he reiterated India's commitment to ensuring world-class equality and urged stakeholders to unitedly work towards achievement of sustainable development goals. The event witnessed a distinguished gathering of experts, professionals and policymakers from across the world. Foreign Affairs Minister of Malaysia, Dr. Zamri Abdul Kadir, will be on a two-day visit to India from November 6th to co-chair the 6th India-Malaysia Joint Commission meeting in the national capital, New Delhi. The meeting will review the progress of enhanced strategic partnership with Malaysia in the area of political, defense, security, economic, trade and investment and people-to-people ties. The apex public policy think tank of the Government of India, Niti Aayog, opened applications under its Atal Innovation Mission for School Innovation Challenge, Atal Marathon 2023-24. It is a national-level innovation challenge for young innovators. Top teams will get an internship opportunity with leading corporates and incubation centers of India. This year, the marathon is themed around India's 75th Republic Day. A quick look at sports now. New Zealand will face Pakistan in match 35 of the ICC Cricket World Cup on Saturday at M. Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru. New Zealand's 3 successive defeats have created opportunities for other teams to catch up, and Pakistan is in the best position to cash in and maybe reignite their season. A total of 115 matches have taken place between New Zealand and Pakistan in the ODI format. Pakistan has won 60 matches, while New Zealand has won 51 matches. 3 matches ended with no result. The match will start at 10:30 a.m. IST. Ashes rivals Australia and England will lock horns at Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad for the second match of the doubleheader on Saturday. Australia found themselves in some early trouble with 2 consecutive defeats to begin their tournament, but they are now on course with 4 big wins on the trot. It all began with a hard-fought win against Sri Lanka. The Pat Cummins-led team then followed it up with blistering batting performances against Pakistan and Netherlands. England, on the other hand, are on the brink of exiting the World Cup. The defending champions have picked up only 1 win in 6 matches and are at the foot of the points table. In their previous outing, they were hammered with a 100-run defeat against India. The match is slated to start at 2 p.m. IST. That's it in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.